something that might help the president's poll numbers. The Trump administration has now put forward a peace proposal that includes recognizing Russian authority over Crimea. Now, Ukrainian officials were apparently shocked because they've said they won't accept a formal surrender of the peninsula. Former Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer spoke with me about what, if any, leverage Ukraine has left. In August of last year, Ukraine launched what was at the time the most significant attack on Russian territory since the Second World War, and that was taking over large swaths of Kursk, 92 settlements, at least 92 settlements there, and that was seen at the time as a way to divert Russian forces from eastern Ukraine, especially Donetsk. And at the time, it was also seen as a strategic move by Ukraine to have leverage in peace talks. Russia has said, we have completely retaken Kursk. Does that signal to you that the leverage that Ukraine might have thought it gained has now been entirely lost?
Well, first off, I rarely take anything the Russians say at face value. They will say whatever they want people to believe. President Zelensky came out right after this was said, right after Gerasimov, the head of Russian military, turned around and made this claim. Zelensky said, no, they have not completely taken Kursk. What the Ukrainians did, and they pushed well into Kursk. They went way up there, took a lot of territory. What that did was put Putin in a horrible political position. It was a negotiating thing. In this case, it was just something that ate up Russian manpower, ate up Russian military resources, and bought them valuable time that they've used to great advantage. And by the way, the Ukrainians since then have moved up into Belgorod Oblast next door, and they've been taking territory in there, and they have really slowed down the Russians on the Eastern Front, in some cases actually retaking towns and villages.
I want to talk briefly about the coherence of our signaling. There has been some vacillation from President Trump, first within the course of like 48 hours saying, yes, Ukraine and Russia are close to a deal, and then flipping on that and indicating that Russia may not want to come to any kind of conclusion here. And I wonder if now the United States has put itself in a position to really have a credibility deficit. Have we devolved now into some sort of Hobbesian reality where our word really means nothing and it's all about trying to achieve some kind of goals that nobody really knows?
Well, I think Hobbesian reality is kind of a reality, which is it's tough. So now I'm hearing the tone changes. It's become clear that the ceasefire will probably not be put in place by the 100 days, that there certainly won't be a peace agreement by the 100 days. He may, and I don't know, because this could switch back. Everybody says, you know, every time you think there's a movement this direction, you turn around the next day and all of a sudden you hear language that is more complementary to the Russian position, if you will. But it could be he's figured out politically he's going to have to blame Putin for this, and that opens the door for more sanctions, the secondary tariffs, and all sorts of things.
Yeah, you alluded right to the final question here, which is looking at sort of the macro conditions here for Russia. The EU is still sourcing close to 19% of its liquefied natural gas from Russia. That's a lever that hasn't been pulled to strengthen sanctions as they stand. We could also go to secondary sanctions, as you mentioned, and then the shadow fleet, which is getting around some of the oil caps. Russia's still hobbling along. Why haven't those sanctions been exerted at this point?
Well, Russia's been able to circumvent a lot of stuff. You referenced the shadow fleet. That's that fleet of barely seaworthy tankers, some of them not particularly seaworthy tankers, that's been turning off their AIS, or automated identification systems. So they're what they call dark tankers, which is they're traveling through congested waterways without any identification on. It's extremely dangerous, especially when we consider the condition of the tankers, consider the capability of the crews and the masters of the ships and everything else. Let's just say this is not a well-run fleet that's moving oil out there. And then they're doing ship-to-ship transfers all over the world, which is a very dangerous thing to do with oil across the board. Now, the liquefied natural gas is interesting because the U.S. was filling, the U.S. and Canada, I should say, were filling that gap with LNG going to Europe. Now with the tariffs regime, that has acted as a disincentive to Europe to rely on the U.S. for a lot of things, and liquefied natural gas is one of them.
And early this morning, Russia launched close to 150 drones and decoys across Ukraine. At least 4 people were killed.